Welcome back. All right, so 4-hour live stream done. A little past 4 hours. We'll be doing a live stream again for rounds 2 through however many. Will not be a 4-hour live stream tomorrow, even if they're still drafting, still showing it on TV. There's a limit. So today we saw one of the most unpredictable drafts I've ever seen. In that, yes, Shane Wright being bumped out of first, not necessarily a huge deal. I did a video on that about a week ago, and how scouts had kind of soured on Shane Wright. But him taking fourth overall, it's a shocker, right? So what I've done here is I've got numbers on the board, and I'll explain it. So Juraj Slafkovsky goes first overall, right? Right winger. He was ranked third on the Elite Prospects combined list. So they take the combined rankings of all the sites they look at and track, and they average it out. Slafkovsky was a third, and they had him going third as well. But the blue number is for Elite Prospects themselves. He was number one on HockeyProspect.com. So that's one that HockeyProspect.com called. So we'll go through it now. Simon Nemec, defenseman, ends up going number 2 overall to New Jersey, which is a surprise. He was number 4 on the average. He was number 6, both on Elite Prospects and Hockey Prospect. And what's interesting is neither Elite Prospect or HockeyProspect.com had him as the best defenseman on the board. When you look through the scouting reports, he was seen as the best overall defenseman, the least risky of the defensemen on the board. So New Jersey goes with a defenseman. That number 2 pick does not get traded. Number 3 goes to Logan Cooley. Not a surprise there. He was overall ranked as number 2 on the board. Number 4 on Elite Prospects, and number 3 on HockeyProspect.com. Shane Wright, as I said, drops all the way to 4th to the Seattle Kraken. Center there. He was ranked number 1 on the combined listings, number 1 by Elite Prospects, and number 2 by HockeyProspect.com. So no matter what way you slice it, Shane Wright, it is a shocker he ends up at 4. There were indications he might not go first, but 4th is a surprise. Number 5, Cutter Gauthier, who ends up going a little bit higher than expected, left wing and center. So he's expected to be a center in college. 8th overall on the combined listings, number 11 for Elite Prospects, number 15 for HockeyProspect.com. So if it's seen as a bit of a reach, I guess, but again, in drafts now we don't see guys trading down. We don't see teams trading down as often to go for, well, we think we can get this guy at 15th, so we'll trade down. They wanted Gauthier, they drafted him. Number 6 was David Jiricek, defenseman, going to the Columbus Blue Jackets, who drafted a defenseman with both picks. Jiricek was 5th on the overall average rankings. Number 2 for Elite Prospects. They love his game. So does HockeyProspect.com. They had him at 4th. So both of them had him as the better defenseman, but the overall average had him 1 spot behind Nemec. So it'll be interesting to watch Jiricek and Nemec over their careers and see which one ends up being better. Kevin Korchinski ends up going next to the Chicago Blackhawks with the pick they got for DeBrincat. Of course, they got more than that pick, but this is one of the picks they got for DeBrincat. Defenseman, he was ranked 12th on the combined list, 19th by Elite Prospects, and 13th by HockeyProspect.com. Then at 8th, Marco Kasper ends up going to the Detroit Red Wings, a center. He was 16th on the combined rankings, 12th for Elite Prospects, ranked 7th by HockeyProspect.com. So Hockey Prospect, big on him, think he's got a good game. The overall rankings had him lower, but he was seen as a guy who was rising during the season. So it's not a surprise to me that the average ends up being lower. Matthew Savoy ends up dropping to 9th, although dropping depends on who you ask. So Philadelphia does end up picking a center. I had figured maybe Savoy, but they end up taking Gauthier instead. Savoy was 7th on the average rankings, 9th both on Elite Prospects and HockeyProspect.com. The 10th overall pick became Pavel Mintyukov, defenseman to the Anaheim Ducks. He was ranked 11th on the combined rankings. He was 7th on Elite Prospects, and he was 5th on HockeyProspect.com. So both Jiricek and Mintyukov, they took ahead of Nemec. So good defense overall, going 4th, 5th, 6th for Hockey Prospect. And so for Anaheim, this could be a very good pick for them. Connor Geekie ends up going 11th, which was higher than expected, to the Arizona Coyotes, who acquired this pick from San Jose. He's a center. He was ranked 18th on the combined rankings, 17th on Elite Prospects, 23rd on HockeyProspect.com. He dropped. He was actually much higher in their rankings, I'll say mid-season, compared to where he ends up in their final rankings in their black book. 12th overall for Columbus, Denton Mateychuk ends up going there. He's a defenseman. His overall ranking was 15th on average, 8th on Elite Prospects. They like him a lot. 27th on HockeyProspect.com. So this is the problem I had with this draft, was going through one book, right? Going through Elite Prospects, I'm like, hey, really high. And then going through HockeyProspect.com and going, or not. Because again, the scouts are all, of different minds and different ideas of where players are going to go. I can do my best on guesswork, but it gets tricky. At 13, the Chicago Blackhawks, with a pick they acquired from the Islanders, end up taking Frank Nazar, center. He was ranked 10th on the average. He was 5th on Elite Prospects. They like his game. 16th on HockeyProspect.com. So again, 5th or 16th. Sure. Yeah, why not? So that's how all over the place this draft was. We were told this all year. At 14, the Jets win the name part of the program with Rutger McGroarty, a right winger. 27th was his overall average ranking, 40th on Elite Prospects, and 11th on HockeyProspect.com. So, again, because I know there were people complaining like, oh, his mock draft was way off. He didn't get anything right. Yeah, this is how the draft was, and I said it right at the start of the video. This draft is really all over the place. Here's a mock draft. We'll see how it goes. So at 15, the Vancouver Canucks have Jonathan Lekkerimäki end up falling into their laps. Swedish player, right winger. Yeah, why not go to the Canucks? His overall average ranking was 9th. Elite Prospects not as sold on him. They had him at 18th. HockeyProspect.com saw him as 8th. So that would qualify as a steal for Vancouver if you trust their rankings. Number 16, the Vegas pick that ended up going to Buffalo. Noah Ostlund is picked there. He's a center. His overall ranking was 19th. He was ranked 27th, though, by Elite Prospects and 41st by HockeyProspect.com. So there was something in his game that they weren't as sold on as the average ranking would tell you. He does end up going right around where he would have in the draft anyways. 17th overall becomes a steal, right? Joakim Kemmel, right winger, ends up going to the Nashville Predators. So Nashville may have done very well for themselves. His average ranking was 6th. He was 10th in the rankings, though, for Elite Prospects and 12th on HockeyProspect.com. So he ends up being ranked lower by both of them than on the average ranking, but it's still much better than where he ends up being drafted. So Nashville has to be happy with how they did. Dallas, Leon Bichsel ends up going there, defenseman, 18th overall. He was not ranked in the top 32 in the consolidated rankings. He's 28th in the Elite Prospects book on prospects at the end of the year there, and 17th in HockeyProspect.com's book. So both of them liked him better than the average ranking, and according to HockeyProspect.com, he ends up going right around where he should have, right? So the Dallas Stars getting a defenseman. Liam Öhgren going to Minnesota. This is the pick they get from the LA Kings. Left winger. His overall average was 17th. He was 13th in Elite Prospects book, 24th in HockeyProspect.com's book. So, again, you kind of look, and it's kind of right in the middle between 13 and 24 at 19. So, right, it kind of saws off there. At 20th, Ivan Miroshnichenko. I apologize for how I'm going to butcher that name for the next while here. But Miroshnichenko, there we go, that's better. Left winger ends up going to the Washington Capitals. His average ranking was 20th, so he ends up exactly where it was expected. But he was 33rd in Elite Prospects book, and he was 22nd in HockeyProspect.com's book. So we'll see how it goes, but Russian player going to the Capitals, there's been some success with that in the past. And him being a left winger, there's been some success with that too with the Capitals. 21st overall, Owen Pickering ends up going there to the Pittsburgh Penguins, defenseman. His average ranking was 23rd, but he was 16th on Elite Prospect, 19th on HockeyProspect.com. And TSN's Craig Button had him going 15th to the Vancouver Canucks. So that may end up being a steal. He's a big defenseman. Pittsburgh picks up a pretty decent prospect there. At 22nd, Nathan Gauthier ends up going to the Anaheim Ducks. This is the pick they pick up for Hampus Lindholm in the Boston deal. Center, his average ranking was 31st. He was 25th on 25th on Elite Prospects, 39th on the HockeyProspect.com site in their book. So again, both of these rankings I'm giving are from their books that they have through their website. And again, it tells you a lot about the prospects. It's a lot of fun to look through because again, there is some guesswork. There's definitely some guesswork when it comes to this kind of thing. At 23rd, St. Louis gets what may end up being a steal, depending on whose opinion you go by. Jimmy Snuggerud, a right winger. 26th overall in the average, 24th on Elite Prospects, 14th on Hockey Prospect. So there you go. Hockey Prospect had him at 14th. Then at 24th, Danila Yurov, right winger. This one looks like it could be a steal. And again, it's that uncertainty around Russian players, but it didn't scare teams completely off. So at 24th, Yurov goes there. Keep in mind, they already had Ogrind as well. He was 13th on the average ranking. He was 23rd on EliteProspects.com and 10th on HockeyProspect.com. So, Elite Prospects had him right around where he gets drafted. Hockey Prospect had him in the top 10. At 25th, the Chicago Blackhawks with a pick they take from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Apologies to all Toronto Maple Leafs fans who watched so much of the live stream for seemingly nothing. So the Chicago Blackhawks with that pick end up taking defenseman Sam Rinzel. 32nd overall was his ranking on both Elite Prospect and Hockey Prospect, though on the consolidated average rankings, he didn't make it into the top 32. So, of course, this is for a trade. I will be talking about trades in the next video. So if you're like, where's all the trades? I will talk about them in the next video. It is easier for me to go through who got picked where and then do a video on the trades after. But Toronto does not have their first round pick. Apologies again to Toronto fans who waited so long. Like, yeah, we're finally up, and we traded it. 26th overall, Calgary traded that to the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens draft Philip Messer at that point, right winger. His average ranking was 25th. He was 36th in Elite Prospects list and 25th in HockeyProspect.com's list. So he ends up going right around where it was expected. 27th overall is where we see the first real reach. I would say real reach here. The San Jose Sharks, who traded down from 11th, draft Philip Bystad, a center. He was ranked 70th by Elite Prospects and 75th by HockeyProspect.com. So, San Jose may have information that others didn't, including these websites, who take their information from scouts. And so they may really just have liked the player. They might have been fine with trading down, getting an extra pick, and going from there. But yeah, Bystad is the first one we can look at in this round and go, that may end up being a stretch or a reach. But you're at 27th, so that happens, right? You're out of those top-notch, I can't say top-notch, you're surefire NHLers once you get down to that point in the draft. 28th overall, the Buffalo Sabres had that pick from Florida. Yuri Kulich is drafted. That's another center. So for Buffalo, center in Noah Ostlund, center in Matthew Savoy, center in Yuri Kulich. You've got all kinds of depth down the blue line now when it comes to prospects with Buffalo. That's good news. You can never have too many centers. He was ranked 21st on average, 29th by Elite Prospects, 21st by Hockey Prospect. To me, I look at this and say he was the best guy left on the board. They may have been surprised he was still available, and they went and grabbed him. 29th overall, we see a bit of a reach here too. Maverick Lamoureux, a defenseman, taken by Arizona in a trade that involved Zach Kassian going to the Coyotes. So Lamoureux was 62nd on Elite Prospects list and 55th on HockeyProspect.com's list. So that's seen as more of a reach. But again, for Arizona, you've got other picks. So it's okay with that 29th pick to pick a guy who may end up being a bit more of a project, right? So that's the wonderful thing with extra picks. You take your blue chip guys, and then with other picks, you can say, I think this guy's going to turn out to be pretty good, and he's underrated. So you can absolutely do that with a later pick. At 30th, finally, Brad Lambert comes off the board. We were having the discussion about how far he was going to fall, and much like Joe Veleno years ago, he drops to 30th. He ends up with the Winnipeg Jets, so this is the pick that they got for Andrew Kopp. So the New York Rangers pick ends up becoming Brad Lambert to the Jets, center. He was ranked 14th on the average, 14th as well by Elite Prospects, but HockeyProspect.com had really soured on him. He was down to 29th on their list. So him being 30th, that's where guys like Mark Edwards and Brad Allen go, yeah, that's kind of around where we had him. The guys who are the head scouts for Hockey Prospect. So interesting to see the change there, right? The difference. Isaac Howard, a left winger, is taken 31st overall by Tampa. Might end up being a steal. He was 24th on the average rankings, but he was 41st on Elite Prospects and 20th on HockeyProspect.com. 21 place difference between the two sites. And then Reed Schaefer is taken 32nd overall by the Edmonton Oilers with the pick they got from Arizona. He is definitely, again, we may be looking at a project here, but we might be looking at a player that the Oilers just really like. Left winger, he was ranked 102nd by Elite Prospects and ranked 53rd by HockeyProspect.com. So if you're of the mind of why didn't they just go for him in the second round, They may not have felt like he would be available. There might have been another team that was scouting Schaefer that they knew was in on him and would take him either in this spot or later on as well in the draft. So the best available according to the average rankings are Jagger Firkus, who was 22nd in the average. 28th on the average was Gleb Trikozov. Callie Odelius, 29th on the average. 30th on the average was Ryan Chesley. And again, the average rankings, Matthias Havelid was 32nd. So those are, if you look at the average rankings that Elite Prospects has, those are your 5 best available. But I will have others on the board for tomorrow going into best available, and we'll see where they end up, right? So there you go. Let me know your thoughts regarding the first round of this year's draft. It was crazy. Shane Wright dropping to 4th. Is this going to be a home run for Seattle, or is this a sign that, yeah, he had that rough year, and there's some debate about whether or not he bounces back next year, right? Does he need more time? Is he going to be NHL ready? I think the most likely to be NHL ready for this coming season, I would have Slavkovsky. I would have Wright as the most likely to be NHL ready, but we always get a surprise. We saw that this year with Cole Sillinger, and we'll likely see it again next season. Because remember, last year's draft, the conversation was none of these draft picks are NHL ready, and then there were a couple that were. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.